They told her this meeting was for executives only. What would you do if the person you dismissed turned out to be the one who signs your paycheck? Let us know in the comments section below. The janitor's closet smelled like old bleach and memories. Kelly Coleman stood inside, tying the strings of a housekeeping apron she hadn't worn in over a decade. Her hands moved slowly, deliberate, not because she was unsure, but because she wanted to feel it. The texture, the weight of it, the reminder. She tucked a curl of hair behind her ear, then stared at her reflection in the dusty mirror hung above a mop bucket. The uniform still fit. So did the fire. 10 minutes ago, she'd walked through the back entrance of the Langston Grand Hotel the same way she used to when she scrubbed baseboards and changed pillowcases for tips guests left on the nightstand. The same way she had when Mr. Thorne, the former general manager, told her she was lucky to have a job at all. She hadn't stepped foot in this place since the takeover, and yet every creak in the floorboard still whispered her name, like it hadn't forgotten. She straightened her shoulders and left the closet. 3 floors above her, in the executive conference suite, the quarterly strategy meeting was already underway. Suits circled the long table, notepads open, egos louder than the speakerphones. No one knew that behind the scenes, behind layers of shell corporations and a paper trail stitched in gold, Kelly Coleman had become the majority shareholder. Not a name, not a rumor, the actual owner. But she didn't plan to announce it with a press release. She planned to walk in as the help and see who noticed. "Excuse me," said a deep voice, stopping her just outside the mahogany double doors. Kelly turned slowly to face him. He wore a navy suit so sharp it could have sliced marble. His watch was worth more than her entire salary in '09. Clipboard in hand, Bluetooth tucked in his ear, and a smirk perched on his face like he practiced it in the mirror. "You're not supposed to be up here. This meeting's for executives only." His name tag said Brent Wallace, Regional Director. She met his stare with eyes so still it made him fidget. "I was told this room needed some assistance." Brent's laugh was quiet, cruel, and quick. "Right. Housekeeping's down the hall. You probably got lost." Kelly didn't blink. She didn't move. "I'll have someone escort you down," he added, already signaling security with a tap of his watch. "Mr. Wallace," came a voice from inside the room. One of the seated execs had poked his head out, eyes darting at Kelly with mild irritation. "Who is this?" "Just staff," Brent replied. "No need to—" Kelly stepped past him. Not fast, not forceful, just like she belonged there. One foot in front of the other until she stood at the head of the table. The air shifted. A couple of suits looked up from their notes, then did a double take. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to—" Brent started, but Kelly had already placed a manila folder on the glass table in front of her. It slid forward like a gauntlet. Inside the folder, acquisition documents, stock transfer certificates, authorization letters, all signed, all final, all legal. No one opened it. They just stared. "I don't believe we've met," said a woman near the middle of the table, trying to sound polite, trying not to sound nervous. Kelly smiled. "That's all right. You've met me now." A beat passed. Then another. And then Brent took a step forward. "Miss? Coleman, was it? Look, this isn't how we do things here. If you have an issue, it should go through the proper channels." Kelly turned to him. "You're right," she said calmly. "And the proper channel leads to me." That got the room quiet. The kind of quiet that used to follow her when she was cleaning the corners no one cared about. The kind of quiet she learned to work through, the kind that always made her wonder if people saw her at all, or just the uniform. Brent chuckled again, but this time it was nervous. "This is absurd." "You're saying what? You own stock enough to be here?" "I'm saying I own this hotel." "No, no way," someone muttered. "That can't be." Kelly gently pushed the folder closer to the nearest executive. "Open it." He hesitated, then did. The pages were neat, crisp. Corporate lawyers, didn't do chaos. The room leaned in. Her name was on every document. Kelly Ann Coleman, owner of Coleman Holdings, which had recently acquired full majority control of the Langston Hospitality Group, parent company to all Langston Grand Hotels nationwide. It happened overnight. It happened in silence, like wealth sometimes does. "What is this?" another exec asked, eyes flicking between the folder and her face. "Is this real?" "Yes." "But how?" "I worked," Kelly said. "I studied. I invested. I built. And when the opportunity came to buy out the holding company, I did." Someone else stammered, "But why show up like that?" Kelly glanced down at her old uniform, brushed a speck of lint off the faded name patch. "To remind myself, and to remind you." Brent's face flushed red, like a sunburn spreading from shame. "You tricked us." "No," she replied. "You ignored me." The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was loud, thick, heavy with the realization that power doesn't always walk in wearing a suit. Sometimes it walks in through the service elevator and sits at the head of the table. Kelly didn't sit right away. She let the folder breathe on the table, its edges curling ever so slightly in the cool air of the boardroom. All eyes were still on it, like it might explode. Like it already had. Brent was still frozen near the doorway, fingers twitching at his sides, eyes stuck in that narrow space between panic and disbelief. The rest of the executives, 12 in total, watched her with a mix of confusion, discomfort, and something that looked a lot like fear pretending to be curiosity. Kelly tilted her chin slightly. "I believe the agenda said we'd be discussing Q2 projections, restructuring proposals, and long-term brand expansion," she said evenly, voice clear and level. "I'd like to begin with culture." A cough from the far end of the table. Then, as if waking from a daze, one of the executives, David Linwood, VP of Development, cleared his throat. "Ms. Coleman? Kelly? If this is accurate, and you are, in fact, the new majority owner, then perhaps we could take a short recess to confirm the documents before we proceed." Kelly didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked around the table, one step at a time, the heels of her shoes striking the floor with purpose, not volume. Her fingers trailed lightly along the glossy surface of the table as she passed them. These were the same people who, for months, had been speculating over the mystery buyer, the new money, the outsider with enough clout to pull off a takeover in the middle of a profitable year. Funny how no one had guessed it might be someone who once vacuumed this room. When she made it back to her chair, she sat. Calmly, elegantly. "Recess, if you need it, but I won't be leaving the room." David gave a tight nod, already pulling out his phone and typing rapidly. Others followed. Whispered voices. Quick glances. One woman in a coral pantsuit leaned into her neighbor and muttered something under her breath. Kelly caught the movement. She didn't have to hear it. She already knew the language. They were scrambling for control of a narrative that no longer belonged to them. Across from her, another man leaned forward. "Miss Molman, forgive me. I wasn't aware you had a background in hospitality investment. Or any kind of investment at all, to be frank. You don't need forgiveness for not knowing. Just honesty." He blinked. "I do," she continued. "My background includes hospitality, operations, finance, and real estate acquisition, more recently equity leverage, corporate restructuring, and brand reimagining." She folded her hands on the table. "Any other questions?" The silence that followed wasn't from respect. Not yet. It was from uncertainty. No one knew what to say to the woman who had just cracked open the glass ceiling without a sound. No theatrics, no headlines, just documents, just presence. Brent, finally recovering from the verbal uppercut, stepped forward again. "Okay, let's back up for a moment. Even if, and I'm saying if, these documents check out and you do have controlling shares, that doesn't give you authority to override the board. Kelly turned her gaze toward him, slowly, patiently. I'm not here to override the board. I am the board. Someone gasped, literally gasped, as if watching a slow-momentum car crash at a gala. You should sit down, she added. You're sweating through your shirt. Brent looked down, and he was. David, phone still in hand, leaned back, his expression changing slightly. Less skepticism, more calculation. Well, he said, I've just been told the acquisition was filed through a Delaware-based entity. Quiet, but legitimate. Looks like she's telling the truth. Kelly didn't smile. She didn't need to. Coral pantsuit cleared her throat. Mr. Coleman, respectfully, why come in like this, in a uniform? Why not a formal introduction, a proper transition? Because you don't notice proper. Kelly's tone didn't shift. It stayed measured, almost gentle, but it cut. You don't notice people like me until you think we don't belong. You notice power, not presence. And too many people in this building have built their confidence on the assumption that people like me are here to serve, not to lead. A younger executive, a junior partner by the look of him, spoke up for the first time. But why buy this hotel chain? There are more profitable investments. Kelly's gaze softened just slightly. Because this chain was my beginning, and now it's going to be someone else's. She leaned forward now, hands still folded, eyes locked on the room. When I started here, I was making $8 an hour. My breaks were timed. My lunch was a bag of peanuts. One manager used to call me Sweetie instead of my name. Another used to brush past me just a little too close, thinking I wouldn't speak up because I needed the job. Not a sound in the room. I left this place with a bruised back and a burning heart. But I told myself, if I ever get the chance to come back, I won't be begging for access. I'll be holding the keys. She let those words sink in. They did. I'm not here for revenge, she continued. I'm here for change. David adjusted his tie. Change? In what way? Employee ownership initiatives, inclusive hiring, ethical guest policies, competitive wages, transparent HR systems, and most importantly, dignity. At every level, not just for the people sitting in this room. That's when something strange happened. Someone clapped. Just once. A slow, unsure clap from the junior exec. But it echoed. Coral Pantsuit shot him a look that could curdle milk. He stopped. Kelly didn't acknowledge it. She didn't need applause. Is that all? Bran asked, though his voice no longer carried the same weight. No, she said. We haven't gotten to the part where I ask for resignations. That shook the room. Eyes widened. Bodies shifted. Brent stammered. You can't just... Not today, Kelly cut in, but soon. She stood. And not because I want revenge, but because leadership has to evolve. And some of you are relics of a culture I'm replacing. Her hand slid over the folder one last time before she pulled it back. Same time next week, she said. Only this time, bring your accountability. And just like that she walked out, no fanfare, no security escort, just quiet footsteps and the ripple of reality reshaping itself in her wake. By the time the doors closed behind her, the room had gone completely still. Except for one thing. The sound of chairs creaking under the sudden weight of consequence. The hallway felt longer than she remembered. Kelly's footsteps echoed down the executive wing like a ticking clock no one wanted to hear. With each step, her heartbeat stayed calm, her breath steady, but the fire behind her ribs burned like it was feeding on decades of swallowed pride. Not anger. Something deeper. Something older. The kind of feeling that lived in the bones of anyone who had ever been overlooked and knew exactly how long they'd waited to be seen. She passed portraits on the wall, old men in black and white suits with dated lapels and smiles that never reached their eyes. Founders, presidents, chairmen. None of them looked like her. Most of them probably never shook hands with anyone who did. That would change soon. The elevator dinged at the end of the corridor. She didn't press the button. Instead, she paused in front of the large, frosted glass door labeled Executive Services Division, the same place where years ago she'd sat for an informal interview and been told her demeanor didn't quite match the Langston brand. That day, she'd walked out with a polite smile and a back pocket full of notes on what they did want. Not so she could be it, but so she could own it. Kelly pushed the door open without knocking. Inside, the floor manager, a man in his 40s named Tyson Reed, was bent over a glossy brochure, headphones in, humming to himself. When he looked up and saw her, he smiled out of habit, but the smile didn't last. She wasn't supposed to be there. Ma'am?" he said, standing up slowly, his voice tilting with confusion. "Can I help you?" "Yes, you can answer a question." Tyson pulled his headphones off completely, blinking. "Okay." Kelly walked straight to the desk, not rushed, not aggressive, just direct. "How many people of color are in corporate management positions at this location?" Tyson blinked again, caught off guard by the question's weight. I'd have to check HR for exact numbers. I don't want to give you inaccurate." "Ballpark." He hesitated, then slowly. "We have maybe 3 at this location. If you're talking senior level, I believe 2. And women? 6, 5, if you don't count part-time marketing." Kelly nodded. "Thank you." Tyson's brows furrowed. "Sorry, who exactly are you again?" Kelly turned slightly, her eyes drifting over the layout behind him, the slick whiteboards, the buzz of admin phones, the piped-in ambient jazz that always seemed to hang in places like this, like an invisible fog of importance. "I'm the person who just bought your boss's boss." She left him standing there, mouth open, halfway between a question and an apology. The elevator finally arrived. As she stepped in, she didn't press the lobby. She pressed 6, operations. It was time to have a different kind of conversation. Downstairs, Brent Wallace hadn't moved from the boardroom. He stood staring at the now empty head chair as if it had something to say. Around him, the executive team slowly dissolved into private conversations, hurried messages, and barely contained panic. Only David Linwood remained still, arms crossed, watching Brent with something close to amusement. "You know," David said after a moment, "you really should have let her speak earlier." Brent turned. His jaw was tight, the veins in his neck visible now. "Don't start." "I'm not starting, I'm observing. You came out swinging, and she didn't even flinch. That woman walked into a lion's den wearing a uniform and still left with the crown." Brent looked down at his hands, then back at the door. "She humiliated me." "No," David corrected him, "you did that yourself." Brent didn't answer. He grabbed his tablet, shoved it into his bag, and stormed out without saying another word. David exhaled, then reached for his phone. In the quiet hum of the boardroom, he sent a message. To Kelly Coleman. Subject, ownership transition. Ready to talk if you're still offering seats at the table. On the 6th floor, the vibe was different. Here, the air buzzed with clattering keyboards and interdepartmental phone calls. No silk ties, no ego cologne, just overworked managers trying to keep everything standing while the board played politics above their heads. Kelly stepped out of the elevator and into the fray like she had before, years ago, when this was her world, when she moved carts through these halls with gloves on her hands and pain in her knees. It looked the same, smelled the same. But now, when she walked through the operations floor, people noticed. Some stared, a few whispered, and one, Letitia, a night auditor with twist braids and headphones in, froze as she rounded the corner and locked eyes with her. "Moves Coleman." Kelly smiled. "It's just Kelly." Letitia pulled the headphones down and stepped forward cautiously. "Is it true? Are you, like, The new? Yes. Letitia let out a stunned laugh. Yo, I didn't believe it. Somebody said a black woman owns this whole place now, and I was like, nah, not this place. Kelly's smile softened. This place. Exactly this place. You serious? As a heart attack. A silence passed, full of unspoken things. Then Letitia asked quietly, So, what happens now? Kelly glanced around the room, saw the posture of the staff, saw the wariness behind their movements. People who made the machine run but never got thanked for being the engine. Now, Cleet said, now we see what happens when the floor gets a voice. Letitia grinned. You staying? I am. Then I might finally take a full lunch break without a guilt trip. Kelly laughed. Do that. I'll back you. She turned the corner and headed for the small conference room where the operations heads were gathered. No one expected her. That's why she came. She pushed the door open gently. 4 department managers looked up in mid-discussion. One of them, a white guy in his 50s with a stress ball in one hand, narrowed his eyes. Ma'am, this is a private... I know. They stared. I'm Kelly Coleman, she said. And starting today, this floor gets heard, this room gets real, and leadership doesn't mean upstairs anymore. She walked in and shut the door behind her. It clicked softly. But the shift in the room was thunder. The room was tense, but not hostile. Not anymore. Eki took the seat closest to the door, not at the head of the table, not yet. She watched their faces, each one a study in nervous calculation. The operations team wasn't made up of polished suits or PR smiles. They were project managers, logistics supervisors, training coordinators, the people who made systems work without needing applause. They weren't the type to hide their thoughts behind boardroom etiquette, which is why none of them smiled. Not yet. They didn't know if she was another figurehead or a flash in the pan. She folded her hands calmly and leaned forward. I know I surprised a lot of people this morning, probably all of you, and I know trust isn't something you get with a press release. One man across the table, a Latino assistant manager with a red pen tucked behind his ear, nodded almost imperceptibly. Kelly continued, I'm not here to micromanage. I'm not here to break what's working. I'm here because this company's been climbing a ladder that's leaning on the wrong wall, and I want to change that. Starting from this floor. A long silence followed. Then someone finally spoke. I'm sorry, but this is just hard to process, said Renee Dawkins, head of scheduling. Her voice wasn't defensive, just honest. One day we're short-staffed, the next we're being addressed by the new owner in a housekeeping uniform. Kelly smiled softly. You're not wrong to feel that way. Renee hesitated, then added, I mean, do you really want our input? I'm just trying to keep people from burning out. I'm not used to being asked. Well, Kelly replied, you better get used to it, because I don't want a chain of exhausted employees and gold-plated leadership. I want a company where our success doesn't depend on silence from the people who hold it together. The man with the red pen spoke next. What does that actually look like? Kelly took a breath. It starts today, with new policies, with better break coverage, with rotating weekend shifts and pay transparency. I've already hired an independent equity consultant to audit the company's internal practices. HR is being restructured, and there's a new line item in the budget specifically for staff wellness and continued training. No one spoke, but their eyes widened. Kelly wasn't finished. And each department will now have a designated advocate, someone who attends executive meetings on rotation. That includes everyone from janitorial to food service to night auditing. Wait, someone asked, stunned. You want us in the room? I want you at the table. If that doesn't happen, then all I did was buy a broken thing and slap my name on it, and I didn't come back here for that. The door cracked open behind her. Letitia peeked in, holding a coffee mug. "Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt." Kelly waved her in. "You're not interrupting." Letitia entered slowly, still getting used to the idea that she belonged in this kind of space now. Kelly turned to the rest of the table. "She's the kind of voice I want in these meetings. Because while you were busy managing the system, she was the one surviving it. I want both." For the first time since she entered, someone smiled. Then another. It wasn't overwhelming, it wasn't thunderous, but it was real. Kelly stood, nodding to each of them. "I know this doesn't erase the past, but I'm building something new here, and if you want to build it with me, I'm listening." When she left the room, it felt lighter behind her. 3 weeks passed. The transformation wasn't dramatic. There were no viral press releases, no interviews. Kelly didn't care about headlines. She cared about systems. Small changes at first, real lunch breaks, bi-weekly staff forums, anonymous suggestion boxes that actually got read. Then came the department advocates. Letitia was nominated by her team unanimously. On her first day in the executive conference room, she wore a gold blouse and her favorite hoop earrings. Brent Wallace walked in late, saw her sitting confidently at the table, and paused. He gave a quick nod, then found a seat near the edge. He hadn't been let go. Not yet. But he'd been moved, his title stripped, his team reassigned, and each week he was required to attend bias training, not as a punishment, but as a prerequisite for staying. He didn't like it. But for the first time in his career, he was learning to listen. David Linwood, on the other hand, adapted quickly. He offered mentorship to the department advocates, even meeting with Letitia one-on-one to help her prep for her new role. "You've got good instincts," he told her one day. "And now you've got the seat. Use it." She did. Kelly stood in the main lobby one evening, watching as night staff filtered in, the golden hour light casting long, warm shadows across the marble floor. No one avoided her anymore. They greeted her, spoke to her like she was one of them. Because she was. She hadn't moved into the top floor office. She gave that to HR. Her desk was in a small room off the operations wing. No nameplate, no fanfare. She liked it that way. As she stood there, a soft voice spoke behind her. "I thought you might be tired of walking alone." It was Renee, holding 2 cups of coffee. Kelly took one with a smile. "You think I'm walking alone?" Renee chuckled. "No, not anymore." They sipped quietly. "Truth is," Renee added, "I didn't believe this could happen. Thought it'd be another version of the same story. New face, same ceiling." Kelly nodded. "That ceiling only breaks if enough hands push up at once." "And you think we're enough?" "I think we've always been enough. They just never expected us to realize it." Outside, dusk settled gently across the city skyline. Inside, voices echoed in the hallway. New hires laughing, a training group reviewing schedules, a manager asking someone if they wanted to swap shifts. It wasn't perfect. It was just finally fair. And that was a start. Kelly looked around one last time and whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "It's ours now." She didn't mean the hotel. She meant the space, the safe, the power, and this time no one was going to take it away.